Today I have a really special guest. She is a songwriter and producer, and she has written a child-free song. If you'd like to listen to the entire song, please go ahead and click the link that is in the description box below. Welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome.
I am a singer-songwriter and a proud woman music producer. And I've been doing this for many years. I'm originally from France, and I moved to the US over 15 years ago. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I live in New York City, and I've had a lot of fun with the music here.
So you wrote a child-free song. What inspired you to write a child-free song?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm child-free, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have written it. I came across the actual word child-free years ago. I don't know exactly who came up with it, but anyhow, and I was like, well, this is exactly, you know, my lifestyle and who I am, and, you know, and everything, as well as my husband. And so, you know, I got interested in the topic. I would read articles, and I could clearly see that, you know, there's more and more people talking about it. And then I looked for a song, and I was like, well, wait a minute, like nobody wrote a song about it. And I was like, well, I'm gonna do it. And so I wrote the lyrics about a year ago.
And it's great that you did something about it when you realized that there's a void there and people aren't writing songs, because sometimes we see that there is something that needs to be done and we talk about it, but we don't actually do it. But you created this song.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it wasn't easy. You know, I wrote the lyrics a year ago, and then, you know, I went into like a whole process, you know, about what kind of sound I'm gonna give it. Do I want it upbeat? Do I want it like kind of like mid-tempo? And it was a whole process. But it took me a whole year to actually produce, compose the whole song, and finally release it. And I did have some doubts at some point too.
That's a really big project.
Yes.
What type of music do you typically write?
Yeah, I would say it's like indie pop, folk. I do play the piano and a little bit the ukulele, so it varies, you know, between some ballads on the piano and kind of some chill beats in the back.
What was different about writing your child-free song as compared to the other music that you've written?
This song is my most personal song, and I really wanted it to be perfect for the message. So I did put a lot of pressure on me and everybody. I think I drove everybody crazy. But I did. And I really wanted to have the proper vibe and energy to it. And then I was like, well, I kind of want it upbeat and fresh and happy, because that's what the song is about. It's to show the world that child-free women are very happy. And I also wanted to have the proper vocal mix, because in my head, I didn't want the lyrics to come super upfront, you know, like a lot of pop songs, you know, whether it's Taylor Swift or even some of my pop songs, because I also wanted people that are not child-free to hear the song and be like, oh, I love this song, without being, you know, annoyed in any way by the lyrics. And I think that worked out really well.
It's very catchy. The second you sent it to me, actually, I was on a trip with my husband, and I was like, oh, cool, this lady sent me a child-free song. So I was listening to it. I'm like, oh, you have to listen to it. He right away was like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea to do that.
Oh, I'm glad he liked it. That's so cool.
Did you have a difficult time finding the musicians?
This is a great question, by the way. I was very picky to choose who I was going to let hear the message of the lyrics before I was going to release the song. So I picked, you know, my favorite musicians and that I trust the most. Very supportive of women in music. So, you know, it's usually the kind of people I'm going to work with. You know, the guys that don't mind having a woman as a boss. So usually it's that.
That's kind of why I asked that question, because I think a lot of people will feel a certain way about child-free. I think that's really interesting that your mind even went there, that you want people to support you, which makes sense because this is your passion project, right? You want people to believe in that message.
Yes, totally. And this is the most personal song I have ever written. Like, you know, I did have some doubts throughout the whole process. At some point, I was like, do I really want to do this? Like, I mean, it's such a big message. Nobody's ever done it. And I was freaking out. And then the day before the release, I was like, did I do the vocals how I wanted them to be? You know, I was like questioning everything. And I was like, am I going to get some backlash about this, and do I really want this? And then when it came out, it was just, yeah, it was great.
How has the reception to your song been? What's people's reaction when they hear it?
The people that I know, you know, my close friends and all that, they were pretty neutral, and they were like, oh, that's great, and the song is wonderful, and it's great that you talk about this, because they already know it. Then, people more like acquaintances. Some of them were neutral, and then I got some congratulations for being so bold and just, being a voice for other women and so forth. Yes, some mothers just came forward to me, like they felt that they had to express to me how happy they are to be a mother. I mean, that it's great that, I'm child-free, but that they're very happy being mothers. And I was like, well, that's great. You're a great mother. This is wonderful, Well, I did have some really interesting other positive reactions. There's some women that I didn't know were child-free that I know, I guess, more as acquaintances, especially in the music industry or the people that had interviewed me in the past or things like this. And they came to me and they said, wow, this is so great. I'm going to share it with all my friends, and I don't have kids neither by choice. And I was, wow, this is so cool. And I had no idea. Sometimes we don't talk about it even between each other because we're afraid of being kind of nosy, like we just want to be sensitive. And so I feel like that kind of opened up the conversation. And so that was great. Yeah, other reactions, I guess because of what's going on in the US right now, I had some questions about, is it about pro-choice? And I was like, well, even though I wouldn't mind talking about this, that the song is not that. So I just redirect them searching on Google what child-free means. The fact that I have on the cover art that we have to talk about these ladies. And I was like, well, what photo of me would I put, like I'm child-free? And I was like, well, I want to show that it's not just me, especially that at the end of the song, I sing, we are child-free, and I made like this whole like choir in the back. And so I was like, well, I need to have like many women on the cover art with me. So I posted on social media that I was looking for child-free women, and I found 55 of them. That way with the song, I sing about it, but it's also, well, it's me, but it's also at least 55 other women. It did make me feel stronger. Yeah, that definitely makes the song stronger, and like it's the big message is coming out for all of us. And other than that, I did have some internet trolls. We told them, I know you deal with that on your videos.
I use video, obviously, as my way to talk about being child-free, and using music is such a different medium than most people would think, right? But I mean, music is everywhere. Music's been around for forever. And I think it's such a powerful tool to reach people. When did you make the choice to live a child-free life?
Oh, that was a long time ago. I was actually 15 years old. I was very young. And, I had a great group of girlfriends. We were very close to each other. One day I was with one of my closest girlfriends, and we were just talking. And I said, well, I'm not going to have any kids. And she was, are you sure, really? And I said, yeah, I just know it. I just know, I have another life purpose. I'll be bigger with a bigger meaning, to me. It's like it was decided then.
I feel the same way. I think I was 14 or 15 when I was just like, I think this is the way I'm going. And obviously you always get that pushback, especially from adults who say, oh, well, you're only young, like you don't really know, and you'll change your mind. How did your family react to your choice at that young age? And then now, as you're obviously not going to be changing your mind.
I'm going to say I'm really lucky with my close family because they never pushed, neither me, neither my sister, they never pushed us, when you'll have kids one day, or when are you going to have kids? When I was a little girl, I never had a baby doll. And my mother never bought me a baby doll, and it was always that we're going to go to the toy store, you pick your toys. I got to choose my toys, every time. Right. So I had mostly animals. And then Barbies, and then Gem and the holograms. That was a big thing. Yeah. And that was my first thing in inspiration. And I also had remote control cars and remote control boats. I don't think there was ever any study done like this, but I see this as the conditioning. Like, when they have little girls take care of a baby doll when they're little, and it already conditions them to think, I'm going to have to be a mother someday. Has there been any study where you have this group of little girls and you raise them without any baby dolls and without ever repeating to them, when you're going to be a mother one day? Like, what would happen later? Would they really be mothers? Would they really want to, all of them, to be mothers?
Yeah, I agree, because I think there's so much social pressure. And that's why child-free women especially get that pressure to be a mom and to have kids. And that's your role and that's your goal in life, because that's just what people do. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's just not everybody's path.
I think so. Totally agree. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel a lot of social pressure to be a parent?
You know, it's really interesting. I've always been very independent and not caring. So my close family never had the problem. Relatives and things like this, I did get comments, but I didn't care. I did have a comment one time. It was like, oh, so when are you going to have kids? I didn't even have like a steady boyfriend. And she was like, when are you going to have kids? I'm like, well, you know how, you know. And then she was like, oh, well, you don't wait that you pass the age and as you should have kids in your 20s. And I like just looked at her and, you know, I guess the look I give in those circumstances is just not a nice look. So then they just stopped talking about it. So, you know, I must say the most pressure I got was from my OB/GYN. I was shocked. At some point she told me, your hormones are going to run out. You need to think about it. And I was like, I already thought about it my whole life. Like I didn't even need to think about it. But it's almost like I had to get authorization from her. And this made me think a lot, not about this, but about, you know, how the womb of a woman doesn't belong to her. It belongs to the whole world, but to herself and what she really wants to do with it. And so anyhow, so she was like, okay, so next year, just come back and tell me exactly what you want to do. And I was like, next year maybe I'd go to another doctor. But anyhow, purposely I went back to her and I said, yeah, no, I didn't change my mind. And my husband neither. And so it's not for us.
Because it is such a personal decision. And yet I feel like in the medical community, there's a push to make a decision a specific way. And if you're not leaning that way, then oh, well, you'll change your mind. And that's definitely what I've experienced too. You're too young, you don't know. That child-free choice sometimes is really not respected. The medical community of all people should be really respectful of both choices equally. That's always how I've felt, but that's definitely not what I've experienced.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you feel that it's been difficult to find individuals who are child-free, like people that are in your area code that live around you?
You know, I live in New York City, so people don't come to New York City to specifically have children, I must say. And I'm lucky. I'm in a community of artists and musicians. A lot of them are child-free. So I don't find it's been too hard. And I do, you know, if ever I'm in a party or things like this, I do tend to gravitate naturally towards the people that I can feel, you know, the child-free. But over the years, you know, my friends that did have kids, I guess if they were good friends, they've always respected me. And then some of the others, they kind of they kind of disappear little by little, you know. So, and that's fine, you know, to each their own.
That does happen with relationships sometimes. Once people have kids, your lives really are so different. And I think it's okay sometimes that there's that separation. Not that it's easy, because when you have really good friends and you really connect with people and then life really changes, that can be a little bit hard to adapt to sometimes.
With my husband, we have seen those that move out of the city to the suburbs, you know, to have kids. And then we're like, oh, you know.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So it's okay.
Do you find that you are quite an open person when it comes to your child-free life? Like, do you have problems with people asking you, even if they're strangers, like, why would you choose this? Or why do you live like that?
You know, at some point I would get defensive. And I must say that thanks to the community that has grown, whether online, on podcasts, so there's even meetup groups now. And I feel, you know, more comfortable that if somebody asks, sometimes I say, what do you need to know? And then, or I say, well, we're child-free. And then they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And I don't think they get it. And then I say, oh, don't be sorry, you know, it's by choice. And they're like, oh, really? And then they're confused because we're married. And they think in their head, oh, why are they married if it wasn't to have children?
I bet you've been asked that several times, because I know that I have, where they say, what's the point? Why would you even get married then?
Yeah, and you know, they don't need to know, but I guess they don't understand the whole thing about commitment and all that stuff. So
that's right. Well, people view it very differently, or they view marriage as having just really one purpose and one goal, and that is to become parents to children, right?
Yeah, it sounds like that's what they think.
What is a common misconception that people have about you because you have chosen to live the child-free life?
I was told to my face, "Oh, well, then you're unloving," and that was just so mean. And because, yeah, totally, and that was just so mean and rude. And I wrote and produced a song for an educational nonprofit organization that helps prevent children trafficking. So if I was unloving or hated children, I wouldn't have done that. That would be a long conversation about why they think that. But and that's why I in the lyrics of the song, I say specifically, they like judging me. They say I'm heartless, and women have many ways to give love, and actually because we're not focused on those specific kids, we actually have all that time to do other things. Some of my friends that had kids, they think then I have time to babysit. And so I was asked a couple times, and because I'm French, that one person was like, "Oh, that's perfect. You're going to teach French to my daughter and watch her because you have all that time." And I was like, "Oh, wow. I have time, to create music. Kids are okay, to visit them, but then, you keep them." And yeah, so this is interesting. And then another thing that I got was, well, then I must be gay. So I have no problem, about, gay women or anybody. I have friends and all that. But when they make that assumption, it's like, why a woman that is child-free or that decided to not have children by choice, then it means she's gay. And there are gay women that actually have children, so they I'm like, what is this about? And then the other thing is, does your husband know? And I'm like, oh, of course. And it's like, no, he doesn't know. You actually kidnapped him. I kidnapped him. I chained him into the apartment, and and I'm holding him prisoner. And then they don't get it, that both of us are child-free, and then it's like, oh, well, then your husband doesn't have kids and it's your fault. Yeah. So, I'm like, then we just stop the conversation, and then
that's right.
Anymore. I think that's pretty much the worst thing I have heard.
Some of them are funny, but some of them are actually, they kind of hit hard a little bit, because just to assume that a woman who chooses not to have kids is unloving or can't nurture anything, it makes you feel like you're a monster or something. And it's just the choice to not have kids. It's not a bad choice, but it's almost the way that people respond to it is like something really egregious, so that we're making some terrible decision somehow that's going to really negatively affect the world, which is, again, honestly, I think a lot of that comes from just societal expectations that have been on women and men for such a long time.
Yeah, I think it comes from the previous generations, honestly. Like how many generations ago they had 12 kids and then they went to 6, 4, 2, and many of us have 0, and this is just normal. The planet is overpopulated, and because I studied biology too, I actually see that. I see, women and men, as knowing they're not gonna have kids. I see it as a bit of like a natural selection, that it's almost an instinct, and it's unconscious or subconscious, because we know that well, one, we have a different life purpose, but also we feel that there's not enough resources on the planet that we don't have kids. I don't see why it's such a bad thing.
Is there any advice that you would give to someone that is child-free?
I think it's really about knowing what you want to do. Just try to not listen and ignore, if you have a family that put a lot of pressure on you. I can only imagine this, and I've heard it from a couple of friends I have that are child-free, and that is just not fun. I think you need to be firm, and if they don't, if it's about when are you going to give me grandkids, that sort of thing, just take that question and just put it apart and tell them, I'm not giving you children because then I have to take care of them. You're not taking them. Just make it very logical. There's always, the option that, some people that, not your close family and that, you don't necessarily need to interact with. You can just stop seeing them if they're really annoying about it. Or just tell them, I just don't want to hear about this anymore. You're judging me constantly. Is it you? Are you sure it's not you that have a problem with having kids? Instead, you need to like protect yourself, be firm, and just move on, really, and just do your life. Focus on what you love doing in your life. What's your life purpose? For me, it's music, and I know for every child-free woman, it's something else. And what I like doing is, I did that my whole life, is actually journaling, like writing notes. I do that a lot because I write songs, so I do that a lot. And then you can go back to your old journals, and if ever you feel, frustrated, or if somebody has put some doubt onto you, for like a day, probably just go away. You can go back to your notes and be like, okay, this is why, and I know, and listen to my song.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. All the information for the song, and I believe I even have your website, is going to be down below. So please listen to her song. Thank you so much for taking time to come and speak with me today and to share your message and share your song. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for having me, and the song is on all music platforms, including on YouTube, everybody.